Hello, friends, and welcome to Figure Study, where I am back with some Transformers Prime stuff. I actually do have a couple more figures that I have not covered. I can't say I have a complete team. I kind of wanted to, but then the Great Selening kicked off, and I find myself kind of... I still have a bit more than I had before, but I'm down a few. But yeah, regardless, I do still have Prime RID Wheeljack, and that's something. I'm actually really glad I got Wheeljack. I wanted Wheeljack for a while and just never really made the effort to get him. Not because I didn't want him despite just saying I wanted him, but because there were just other things that kept coming up. But clearly I did get him because I have him now. Got him off of eBay and everything's cool. And yeah, it's a really cool mold. I actually had Prime Dead End first and really enjoyed the mold, but as much as I liked Dead End for what he was, I still really wanted to get Wheeljack because I wanted to have that kind of core Prime team. So now I've got Wheeljack. He does come with his swords. I don't have them attached because, you know me, I don't normally go over accessories, but he does have his swords, or rather I do have his swords. This vehicle mode is weird. It's sort of like a low polygon render of a concept car. I don't dislike it. I think it looks cool. It's sort of like something out of the 80s, but it's neat. It's, like I said, like a low poly concept car. There's a lot of really interesting angles to it. The contours are interesting. It's got kind of a wedge shape, which makes it come off as like a sports car, but then it's also got kind of like the little flares at the bottom that make me think of like a Lamborghini or something like that. And that kind of pointed nose that could be any number of sports cars. It's cool. I also like how while the deco is relatively minimal, it does still pull things off really well. Like it's predominantly white, but then you've got the black for the tires and the silver for the rims with little bits of red here and there. This triangle of red down here seems kind of random. I don't have a picture of Prime Wheeljack handy to know if that's show accurate or not. So I'm, not really going to be nitpicking accuracy, but I don't know, that just seems random. Like, I feel like that red could have continued going along here, because you can see there are, like, it is following a shape in the car there, so I don't know why it just doesn't go the rest of the way. But what is interesting is I actually really like what they did with the design of the front and roof of the car, because you've got this red and green kind of V swoop shape in the front there that is a bit more pronounced and angled, but then you've got a very similar shape at the top here that's sort of repeated. It's different, but it is very similar. It almost looks like, in a way, you could imagine this is the shape originally, and then as it starts to go faster and sort of smush and distort due to speed, this is how it would end up. I'm just pulling that out of my butt, but it does kind of have that look to it. Though I am noticing, unfortunately, the deco on either side here is a little bit off center. Now you can see this bit is actually closer to the gray venting than on this side. And that's not a transformation thing, that's just a deco being misaligned thing. Which, fine, whatever. I'm only noticing it now, not that huge a deal, but it's an imperfection. And the detailing on the top here, like I said, you've got that similar shape. And it's a little bit broken up here, which I think is just due to the way the toy's designed. I don't expect them to get it like right up against the seams there. And then this gray in the back that kind of works as like a rear, not window, but like vent, I guess? I don't know. Older cars in like the 70s and 80s, I think, had like these weird kind of slats going over the back window. I never really understood why even back then, but it kind of reminds me of that. And then in the back, you've actually got painted taillights and brake lights, which is great. I'm totally here for that. It's a little gappy right back there, but that's fine. A little gappy in the front too, but in a way that kind of works for me. And the windows, they are translucent plastic, but what I like about this is the plastic is dark enough that it obscures most of the robot junk in there. Plus it contrasts with the plastic around it, so it's very clearly a windshield and side windows. And I like how it's one continuous piece that goes all the way around. That's really slick. So I think that is going to do it for looking at the car mode on its own. Let's do some size comparisons here. So here is Wheeljack with a standard deluxe, and he is a little bit smaller overall than a typical deluxe, but it's, sports car, muscle car. That's kind of how this stuff goes. And for a change of pace, let's look at something that's actually from the same line, because I'm really bad about that. Here he is with the RID Viacon, not the first edition. This is the objectively better one. Sorry if you really like the first edition one. But yeah, here he is with the Viacon, and he's a little bit bigger than the Viacon, which is a little bit off, I think, just in terms of, like, if this is supposed to be like a sedan and this is supposed to be a sports car, I feel like the sedan should be bigger, but it's okay. Like, they still look good together, and they have a similar vibe about them and aesthetic that does make them seem like they're from the same place. It's just, I do feel like realistically he should probably be a little bit bigger, but I don't really care about scale. I'm just kind of nitpicking because I don't know. Here he is with the duck tank, and that is going to do it for the size comparisons. So let's get Wheeljack transformed into Wheeljack. And here we have Transformers Prime Robots in Disguise Wheeljack in robot mode, and this looks pretty darn great. I know that people have long had issues with the arms, and I also know that there is the option, kind of, that like you can rotate this up a little bit to bring the arm in more, and like it makes the arm come up a little bit more, but like look at the difference here. That's so minimal, it's not even worth it. I don't care. I am totally fine with the lankier arms. It's fine. All things considered, I don't think they're even that lanky. Like typically it should be maybe coming up to about here, give or take. And yeah, it's fine. Really, the only gripe I have with Wheeljack is the fact that he doesn't have bicep swivels, but that's a gripe that a lot of people have. Aesthetically, he looks fantastic. He could use with a little bit more paint in a few places, because you get the paint from the front of the car in the shins and a little bit from the hood in the torso there as well, which is nice. But there could definitely be more. There's a lot of unpainted plastic on display here, just looking at it from the front, which is something I'll probably do on my own at some point in the future. But still, looks good. The shape is interesting too. I like how it's sort of vaguely reminiscent of G1 Wheeljack, but at the same time, obviously it's an updated design. Like how you've got the car roof and windshield for the chest, and then the front of the car for the shins. It's not the feet anymore, but it still kind of evokes a similar shape, and they even gave him his little back wings. It is cool. And while I did gripe about the lack of paint, I think the color distribution is good, at least. Yeah, there's not a whole lot in the robot mode that's painted, other than, say, the head and like this little extra detail on the chest there, but the breakup is nice because it's predominantly white, but then it's broken up in a lot of different places by a combination of the darker gray, the lighter gray, and then little hits of red and black here and there. I don't really count the green because it's just the one spot, but it's good. It looks good. I like how the arms kind of hinge up and create part of the torso here. That little swing move with the with the head coming up is nice. I really like how the shins transform. That's really cool. How it's like this weird kind of series of folds that end up reorienting everything. It's really impressive. Detail-wise, it's a lot of car stuff and then a little bit of robot stuff revealed, like the thighs there. I like that they painted the insides of the thighs, though the outsides could use some paint. I don't know why they went with the insides versus the outsides, but that's a thing they did, I guess. The waist has some nice detailing, though that could also do with some paint. And the chest, as I said, has that nice kind of car hood, or not car hood, the car roof homage to the G1 character, as I understand it anyway. Got some added detailing in the forearms there. It's very simplistic detail. I mean, Prime is sort of in the same vein as animated, so there's not a ton of textural detail in a lot of these figures, but it still looks good. The shoulders are... I actually kind of like the way that the wheel well juts forward there. I might be alone in that, I don't know, but I think it looks cool. And I actually prefer that look to the kind of stumpy, barely transformed arm look. I mean, I do think it's cool having the added color from the taillights visible up top there, but overall I just like the shape of it better with the spikes kind of coming forward. As for the head, that is definitively Wheeljack, even without watching Prime. As long as you're familiar with the character in any capacity, that is totally Wheeljack. The shape, the way the ears come out like that, the segmented mask plate that a lot of people compare to a Slinky, it's very, very Wheeljack. And I'm cool with it. I mean, it probably would have been nice if they gave him the unmasked face for his toy, because when he's standing there with the other Autobots, looks a little bit out of place unless you put him next to first edition Optimus Prime, who also has the faceplate. And I mean, I like the faceplate looks. Don't get me wrong, like if it came down to choosing one or the other, I would probably go with faceplates all the time because I just think they look cooler, like they're ready for battle. But in terms of like character stuff, I feel like him having the faceplate on just kind of separates him from the others a bit in an aesthetic sense. But then seeing as how Wheeljack mostly kept to himself for a large portion of the show, I suppose him standing apart isn't that unreasonable. It's an aesthetic thing. I just think if his face was visible, maybe had like a little bit of that scarring, it would have given him a little bit more personality. Not that I don't think this figure doesn't have it, I just think it would have given him a little bit more personality. Because, like, you know, RC's got that nice little smirk. Bulkhead is definitively Bulkhead. Soundwave, well, Starscream has the also kind of smirky face, and you just get a little bit more personality when you've got visible faces. And I know this is weird for me to say because I tend to prefer covered faces, but for Prime, I think it would have worked better. But then again, it's also one of those rare instances where I'm actually familiar with the source material, so take what I say with a grain of salt, as you always should, because I am hardly a professional in any sense of the word. Anyway, let's get Wheeljack off to the side there so we can do our size comparisons. And here he is with our standard deluxe, and yes, I am aware that Downshift is, in a lot of cases, considered Wheeljack in his own way, so I guess it's an apt comparison. And he's definitely, he's a little bit shorter. I mean, Wheeljack was actually a little bit on the short side in the show, from what I remember. He still expands out nicely for that very compact vehicle mode, but he's a little bit shorter than, I guess, the average deluxe. Here he is with a Prime Viacon, so you can see how they work out there. And he's definitely shorter than a Viacon, but again, Wheeljack is kind of a short... That's bugging me. There. Wheeljack is kind of a short guy. I still love that Viacon so much. It's such a great design. And here is Wheeljack with the duck tank. And that is gonna do it for Transformers Prime Robots in Disguise, words, Wheeljack. I really like this figure. The engineering on him is great, aside from the lack of bicep swivels, which they totally could have put in, and I don't know why they didn't. That's lame, but fine, whatever. But yeah, he's a very cool figure. The transformation engineering is very cool on him. I like a lot of the little tricks that he does. He compacts into a car nicely. He expands out into a very cohesive robot. He's very evocative of the G1 Wheeljack, while at the same time clearly being his own thing. Aside from the bicep swivels, my only real gripe, and my only aesthetic gripe, really... Okay, my main aesthetic gripe is the fact that he really could have used more paint in places. But yeah, that was my primary aesthetic complaint. The only other thing is the faceplate thing, which I already went over, and I'm not going to retread that because, oh boy, that went on too long already. But that's enough about what I think of Prime Wheeljack. What do you all think of this guy? Because I know he's got quite a few fans, and a lot of people have the same issues that I already mentioned with the idea of like the arms being too long, the lack of bicep swivels, and so on and so forth. In terms of Prime figures, if you have more than one, where would you rank him? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. And while you're at it, also feel free to like, subscribe, or if you're feeling generous, you could buy me a coffee. There will be a link in the description for that. Any of those things would make me a happy Rob. And remember, art is more than meets the eye.